Ron Prosor is Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, joins us live from our New York bureau. Ambassador, thanks so much. I mean, it was only a couple of days ago there was talk of de-escalation of all of this. The opposite has happened. What is the end game from Israel's point of view?
Well, let's begin to remind everyone that it basically started with Hamas abducting and murdering 3 Israeli teenagers. So this doesn't come out of the blue. And as you know, for example, yesterday you had Hamas fire rockets into Israel, 65 rockets in an hour, which is equivalent of nearly a missile every minute. So I think it is absolutely clear that the state of Israel and the government of Israel will do everything it can to prevent this indiscriminate fire against Israeli civilians.
I want to get through a couple of issues, but you mentioned something there, and I'd like to touch on. Everyone on the other side is saying, what is the evidence for blaming Hamas, the organization Hamas, for the kidnapping and murder of those teenagers, the brutal killing? What is the evidence to blame the organization of Hamas, as opposed to perhaps a couple of members?
Well, we know very clear that those are Hamas people in Hebron who did that, and you can ask the same question about Hamas being in a unity government with the Palestinian Authority. This unity government, some countries bless that quicker than a Las Vegas marriage clerk. And look at this.
But that wasn't the question, Ambassador. What is the evidence for Hamas being behind the kidnapping and killing?
The evidence you see every single minute now by Hamas indiscriminately firing rockets into Israeli neighborhoods and cities day in and day out. I have a red alert here in my app that buzzes every time a rocket is being fired to Israeli cities. This red alert application gives Israeli citizens 15 seconds to reach shelters. Now, even Usain Bolt can only run the 100-meter sprint in 10 seconds. Just think what it means for Israeli citizens day in and day out to run to shelters. We will not allow this to continue, very clearly.
Right, okay, that doesn't answer the question of evidence about Hamas being behind it as an organization, but we will move on. Palestinians argue, as they always have and will continue to, that the root cause is the occupation in the West Bank and the economic blockade when it comes to Gaza. Look, you know this story better than anyone. I've been covering for 25 years, and I do feel like it's Groundhog Day. We have the same conversation every couple of years. What is going to happen?
Well, you are in there for quite a long time, and I ran the Israeli Foreign Service when we disengaged completely out of Gaza. We took out the settlements. We basically went back to the borders of Israel, 67 lines, green lines. What do we get? We get Gaza as a launching pad of terrorists against civilians day in and day out.
Understood.
Hamas uses their own people more as human shields and as human beings, from my point of view. This cannot continue.
And I understand that argument well, but the Palestinians, again, I put it to you, they say that, okay, Israel pulled out of Gaza, but there is an economic blockade. Nobody has been able to sell anything they make in Gaza for, 7 years? Israel controls the skies, they control the seas. They say that Gaza is a prison. It's an occupation by a different name. What is the answer here, though, when we're looking at the broader picture? Are we going to have this conversation in 10 years?
It's very clear that if a terrorist organization, Hamas, doesn't recognize Israel's right to exist, continues with violence and doesn't really abide by any agreements made, well, it's very hard to know how you negotiate with someone who doesn't really recognize your right to exist. What do you want to negotiate with? On how big the coffin or how deep the hole, the grave? In the sense, Hamas is a terrorist organization. You see those terrorist organizations now all over. It's ISIS, it's Hezbollah, it's Hamas. We, the international community, should stand very firm and clear to stop terrorism, and after we do that, we, the state of Israel and the people of Israel, have shown that when we had people on the other side, Sadat in Egypt, King Hussein in Jordan, we were willing and will continue to be willing to reach out to anyone who wants to peace with us. But we will not allow Israeli citizens to be under arm's length by terrorist organizations, and we're going to do everything we can in order to prevent anything against Israeli citizens.
Yeah, a lot of people arguing neither side really is doing much here. I will say I was interviewing Osama Hamdan, the Hamas spokesman in Beirut a short time ago for the Amanpour program a little later in the day, asked him repeatedly whether he saw any chance of Hamas recognising Israel's right to exist, and I will tell you, could not get a straight answer. Ron, I've got to leave it there. Ambassador Ron Prosor, Israeli ambassador to the UN, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.